Welcome. The topic we'll be discussing in this lecture is performance of demand paging. So last class we have discussed demand paging. So I believe you remember the concept of demand paging. That is, the pages will be brought into the main memory only if it is required. The CPU will create the logical address. If that particular page is available in the main memory, then it works like that of a normal paging. It is like a non-demand paging. Otherwise, a trap will be created, and then the operating system will check whether it is a legal access or not. If it is an illegal access, the process will be aborted. If it is a legal access, then that particular page will be brought into the main memory and a particular frame will be allocated. An empty frame will be identified and the page will be moved into that particular frame of the main memory, and accordingly the page table will be updated with the respective frame number, and the invalid bit will be changed into valid, and once again that instructions will be reinitiated. Okay, so this is what we have discussed. So actually, but this entire process involves so many steps which we'll be discussing in detail now. Okay, and we'll be try to mathematically evaluate the performance of demand paging, right? So this is the objective of this lecture. So these are the various stages in demand paging under worst case scenario. Worst case scenario means when there is a page fault. So worst case scenario in the sense when there is a page fault, right? So when there is a page fault, if the page that is required by the operating system is not available in the memory, the page that is requested by the CPU is not available in the memory, then a trap will be created to the operating system. Okay, then so this particular so one process is currently executing, right? This process want to load a particular page, but that page is not available in the operating in the that page is currently not available in the main memory. Because of that, the trap is created. So whenever there is a trap, whenever there is an interrupt, trap is an interrupt, right? What will happen? The current state of the process should be stored in the stack, and the interrupt service routine should be executed to serve that particular interrupt. So the second step is save the user registers and process state of the process whichever it is executing. Currently process P1 is executing means the process P1's state should be registers and the state should be stored in the stack. Okay, and determine whether the interrupt was because of page fault. Yes, this trap is created. So let us check, because it is just a hardware interrupt. So the operating system should check whether it is because of the page fault or not. Okay, if it is due to the page fault, then check whether it is a legal access or not. Okay, if it is a legal access, then determine the location of the page on the disk. Okay, then identify a free frame. Then identify a free frame, and then we have to first move the page from the disk to the main memory. So that itself requires these three steps, three sub steps. That is, you cannot just like that access the hard disk, because some other device may be already accessing the hard disk. In that case, you may have to wait in the IO queue to get access to the hard disk and to identify that particular frame. Okay, so once your turn comes, that is, you are waiting in the queue to access the particular frame from the hard disk. Once your turn comes, then you have to access the hard disk. So that also requires seek time or latency. Then identify that particular frame and move it to a free frame in the main memory. Okay, okay, you should also identify a free frame. Only when a free frame is available, this particular frame can be moved from the hard disk to the main memory, right? Okay, so during these process, during when all this thing is happening, when that is when the when you are moving a particular when you are moving the page from the hard disk to the main memory, during this time CPU will be idle. So to better utilization of the CPU, during this waiting time, CPU may execute some other process. Okay, CPU may execute some other process. Okay, so this is, so these three steps previously, what will happen in the sense, it will initiate the page transfer. By this particular step, it will initiate the page transfer. That is, the copy of the page will be moved from the hard disk to main memory. Okay, but again this itself will take some time. It is not that it will done in a fraction of second. No, it may take some time to move the frame from the hard disk to the main memory. So this itself will take time. So once this process completed, once again an interrupt will be generated from the disk IO system, which states that previously whatever the IO you initiated to move the frame from the hard disk to the main memory, that is now completed. Once that IO is completed, now if at all meanwhile CPU is executing some other process, because during this IO CPU is waiting, and if some other process it is executing, then save the register and process state of that particular process. Okay, and then uh, and then determine whether this interrupt which is previously created, is it from the disk. Okay, it's the IO operation, but which IO? Is it from the disk, or is it that particular frame which we previously requested, is that has moved to the main memory? Identify that. Okay, if it is that particular, if it is, if the interrupt is caused because of the movement of that particular frame from the hard disk to the main memory, then correct the page table, update the page table. That is, update in the page table the respective frame number for the corresponding page number, and also update the what you call invalid bit to valid bit. Okay, okay, and then wait for the CPU to be once again allocated to this particular process P1, which originally created the trap. Okay, because now whatever the page it is requested, it is moved into the main memory, so it is now ready to execute again. But still it should wait for the CPU for its turn to come, because we don't know what scheduling algorithm CPU is using. Accordingly, this process will once again get its turn. Okay, when this process gets its turn, then again restore the registers and process state and the page table corresponding to this particular process, and resume the interrupted instruction. It is previously whichever the instruction caused the interrupt. Okay, which instruction caused the interrupt? The instruction to access a particular page that created the page default. Now again restart that instruction, because now that instruction was moved, now that page was moved into the main memory. So again resume that interrupted instruction and continue. Okay, so this many steps are involved in detail if you see at the worst case when there is a page fault. Now let us try to analyze the performance of demand paging. Okay, so let us assume the page fault rate. Okay, the page fault rate is given as P, the rate of the probability of page fault, or the page fault rate, at what rate there will be page fault, that is given as P. If P is equal to 0, it means there is no page fault at all. It means for a particular process there is no page fault at all pages available in the main memory. If P is equal to 1, it means that every reference is a page fault. If P is equal to 1, it means that every memory reference is a page fault. Okay, fine. Given this particular information, that is page fault rate is referred as P. P is equal to 0 refers no page fault. P equal to 1 refers every memory reference is a page fault. Then effective access time can be calculated with this particular formula, which states that 1 minus P into memory access time. So P refers page fault. Okay, 1 minus P refers there is no page fault. Okay, so if P is equal to uh, if P is equal to 0.8, it means that 80% of the time there is a page fault, and remaining 20% of the time there is no page fault. Okay, so So this remaining 20% is nothing but what? 1 minus p. 1 minus p. Okay. So this is page fault. This is no page fault. Right. So okay. If 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 page fault is 0.4, then no page fault is 0.6. Okay. Right. So the effective access time is given as 1 minus p into memory access time when there is no page fault, okay, plus p into page fault overhead. Okay, obviously the memory access time during page fault will be more than during when there is no page fault. Okay, when there is no page fault, already the frame is available in the memory, directly go and access, so this time will be very much lesser, right? But when there is a page fault, as we discussed previously, this many, all these 12 steps should be done. So for all these 12 steps, it may require a lot of time, so that time is nothing but page fault overhead plus the swap time. Okay, how much time it is required to uh, uh, so this swap is an additional thing. This swap, when it happens in the sense, this swap thing when it happens in the sense, let us assume that there is no empty frames in the main memory. Okay, here we are assuming that there is an empty frame in the main memory. So in the main memory, there is a page fault. Then immediately you are identifying the empty frame. So there is an empty frame X, and then we move the frame from the, then we identify the frame from the hard disk, and we are moving that frame to this empty frame. But if there is no empty frame, then what should we do? Then we should do then we should do page replacement. One of the page should be swapped out and this page should be swapped in. Okay, so that will happen if there is no empty frames. Okay, so that is the so that is what the other overhead involved. Okay, sometimes there may be, you may have to swap a page out and swap another page in. Okay, so this is how the effective access time is given for calculating the performance of demand paging. 1 minus p into memory access time plus p into page fault overhead plus swap page out time plus swap. Let us discuss this with an example. Okay, for simplicity, we are assuming that to make this calculation simple, we are assuming that there is an empty frame available in the main memory. Okay, so it means that we need not perform swap out and swap in. That is, you need not swap out a page and then swap in. So we are assuming there is an empty frame available. So we are neglecting this part. So if you neglect this part, then the formula will reduce like this. Effective access time will be equal to 1 minus p into memory access time when there is no page fault plus p into page fault overhead. Okay. So with this assumption, let us try to calculate the performance of demand paging. Let us assume the memory access time when there is no page fault. When there is no page fault, let us assume the memory access time is 200 nanosecond. That is the requested page, whatever the logical address created by the CPU, the corresponding page is available in the main memory. Now to access that, how much time is required for the CPU? It is just 200 nanoseconds. Okay, 200 nanoseconds. Let us assume the average page fault service time is 8 milliseconds. It means if the page fault is, if there is a page fault, if there is a page fault, then the trap will be created and then the page will be moved from the hard disk to main memory. All these things we have discussed. So to perform all those 12 steps, let us assume it takes 8 milliseconds. That is, if there is a page fault, then to access the memory, CPU needs 8 milliseconds. Okay, fine. In that case, effective memory access time is given like this. So what is effective access time? You recollect the formula: 1 minus p into memory access time when there is no page fault. So that is 200 milliseconds plus p into uh, the page fault service time. Okay, or the page fault overhead. The overhead here is how much time? 8 milliseconds. Okay, so millisecond is 10 to the power 3. Okay, or 10 to the power minus 3. 10 to the power minus 3 is millisecond. Okay, 10 to the power minus 6 is microseconds. 10 to the power minus 9 is nanoseconds. Okay, so 8 millisecond, but this is 200 nanoseconds. Okay, so if you want to convert this 8 milliseconds to nanosecond, okay, if you want to convert this 8 millisecond to nanoseconds, okay, then you have to multiply that with, if you multiply this 8 with 1000, what you will get is microseconds, that is 8000 microseconds. Okay, 8 millisecond is nothing but 8000 microseconds. Okay. Again, if you multiply that with 1000, what you get is a nanosecond. Okay, so 8 millisecond is nothing but this many nanoseconds. 8 millisecond is nothing but this many nanoseconds. Okay, and now if you simplify this equation, what you get is 200 plus p into this much value, 200 plus p into 7,999,800. Okay, where p is the page fault rate, where p is the page fault rate. Okay, so let us assume that if there is a page fault out of 1000 memory access, if there is one page fault out of 1000 access, okay, that is out of the 1000 logical address created by the CPU, there is only one page fault. If CPU creates 1000 logical address, then out of this 1000 there is only one page fault. Okay, then the page fault rate is what? 1 by 1000. And the page fault rate is 1 by 1000. Okay, so 1 by 1000 is how much? 1 by 1000 is 0.001. Okay, 1 by 1000 is nothing but 0.001. So it means that p value is 0.001. If you substitute p as 0.001, if you substitute p value as 0.001, then what you get in the sense, if you substitute p as 0.001, you substitute p value as 0.001. Let me take the calculator. Okay, then what you will get? Let us put it in this equation. Then what you will get is, so basically it is 200 plus 0.001 into 7,999,800. Okay, so what you get is this much. Okay, 8,199.8. This much nanoseconds. This much nanoseconds. Okay. Okay, let us try to convert this to microsecond. If you want to convert nanosecond to microsecond, so as I already said, nanosecond is 10 to the power minus 6, microsecond is 10 to the power minus 9. Okay, so you have to multiply, you have to divide it by 1000. You have to divide this by 1000. So if you divide this by 1000, what you get is in terms of microsecond. Okay, so what you get is 8.1998, which is approximately 8.2 microsecond. So in this case, it is 8.2 microsecond. Okay, it is 8.2 microsecond. But this 8.2 microsecond is what? Is it a good performance? If you see, no, it's not a good performance. Here, there is a slowdown by a factor of 40. There is a slowdown by a factor of 40. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that, oh, okay, so even if there is one page fault out of 1000 memory access, it is not a great performance. It is in fact very worst performance because there is a slowdown by 40. How do we say there is a slowdown by 40? See, how do we say in the sense, refer this equation. If there is no page fault, then what will be the value of this equation? If there is no page fault. If there is no page fault, then P will be 0. Right? If there is no page fault, then P will be 0, then this part will be 0. Then effective access time will be just 200. Okay, then effective access time will be just 200. That is the ideal case. Because even if the page is available in the memory, you need 200 nanoseconds. So in the ideal case, if there is no page fault, the effective access time will be 200 nanoseconds. Okay, but now we got how much? But now we got how much nanoseconds? We got 8,190, 8,199.8 nanoseconds. Okay, so this much nanoseconds we got. Okay, so just divide it by 200, which is the ideal case. So what you get is 40.99. So approximately there is a slowdown by a factor of 40, which is not acceptable. Which is not acceptable. So then what should be the page fault? At what rate page fault is acceptable? That we should know, right? At what rate page fault is acceptable? How much page fault is acceptable? See, this is very important in terms of virtual memory. So it is not that as we have virtual memory, any number of page fault is not, any number of page fault is acceptable. No, we should know the boundary, how much page fault is acceptable. That's what we are evaluating here. Okay. So let us assume that if we want the performance degradation to be less than 10 percentage, if we want the performance degradation to be less than 10 percentage, okay, then what does it mean? It means that anyway, minimum ideal case also you need 200 nanoseconds. Okay, so what is 10 percentage of 200? 10 percentage of 200 is 20. 10 percentage of 200 is 20. So if there is 10 percentage of degradation, then the effective access time will be 200 plus 20, that is 220. Okay, if there is 10 percentage of degradation, then the effective access time will be 200 plus 20, because 10 percentage of 200 is 20. If you want the degradation should be less than 10 percentage, then 220 should be greater than this entire thing. 220 should be greater than this entire thing. Okay, let us equate that way. Then if you move this 200 here, then 20 should be greater than this point. Okay, then what should be P? Then P will be 20 by this value. So 20 by 7,000, 20 by 7,099, whatever that. So that is what? 20 by 7,000, sorry, 7,998,00. It is sorry, 20 divided by 7,998,00. Okay, yeah, it is coming in terms of e to the power minus 6, so which is nothing but 0.000025. Okay, 0.000.5025. Okay, so it means the probability that the what you call the page fault rate value of P should be this much. Value of P should be this much. What does it mean? Value of P should be less than 0.0025. Then it means how many page fault we can accept, out of how many memory access we can accept one page fault. How can we calculate that? How can we calculate that? So basically what it means in the sense, basically what it means in the sense, basically this means that 1 by, so P should be less than or equal to this. It means that 1 by X. X is what? X is what? Out of the, how many instructions page fault, one page fault is acceptable, that is X. X represents out of how many instructions one page fault is accepted. So 1 by x is should be equal to, so 1 by x should be less than or equal to p. What is p? 0.0000, this value 0.0000 0 5 zeros, okay, 0.00025, okay. So what will be x? So x mean x is out of this many instructions, one page fault is acceptable. So x represents how many instructions, out of how many instructions one page fault is acceptable. So if you bring x that side, it will be 1 by 0.00025. So it is, we need to calculate 1 by this, whatever this in the calculator you are seeing. Okay. So if you calculate 1 by that, it is what? 3,933, yeah, 3,99,990, which is approximately equal to 4 lakh memory access. That is, out of 4 lakh memory access, one page fault. If there is one page fault, then the performance degradation will be less than 10%. Okay. So this is how we evaluate the performance of demand paging. Okay. So it is not that we can have any number of page faults. The page fault should be limited so that we can get a better performance, right? So, yeah, fine, that's it about this particular topic. So you may get problems from this particular lecture, like you may ask to calculate the effective access time, given the memory access time, average page fault service, and the what you call, and the and the page faults per 1,000 instructions or 2,000 instructions, whatever it may be. Okay. Or you may be given all these things and you may be asked to find out what is the slowdown factor. That is also, it may be. Okay. So slowdown factor is without page fault. If there is zero page fault, then what is the effective access time? That you have to divide. When there is a page fault, how many value you are getting, divide that value by uh, the value that you are getting when there is no page fault. Okay. Or you may be asked to find out, like, if you want to improve the performance by less than 10 percentage or less than 5 percentage or less than 20 percentage, then what should be p? Okay. All this kind of questions can be asked. Okay. Or given a value for p, how many page fault in how many, for how much memory access, or for how many memory access one page fault is can, it can be tolerated. Such questions can be asked. Okay. For example, just this value can be given and you can ask to you can be asked to calculate one page fault for every dash memory access is allowed, right? So you should practice these things, right? Fine, let us stop here. Thank you.